It was a scorching day in June 1947 when the silence of the vast Indian Ocean was suddenly broken by a chilling SOS message that would go on to become one of the most haunting unsolved maritime mysteries in history. Ships sailing through the Strait of Malacca began receiving a strange, fragmented distress call from an unidentified Dutch freighter, later identified as the SS Ourang Medan. The words transmitted over the static-filled radio waves were brief but terrifying: all officers including captain are dead. Lying in chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. The voice that sent this desperate plea reportedly faded in and out, broken by static, but the message was clear enough to spark immediate alarm. Moments later, another chilling phrase was heard: "I die." After that, silence. No further communication came from the vessel, no clarification, no explanation, only the weight of those final words hanging heavy in the minds of the radio operators who had heard them. Curiosity, fear, and duty pushed a few nearby ships, including an American vessel known as the Silver Star, to alter their course and investigate this mysterious call for help. What they discovered when they reached the location of the Ourang Medan would etch itself into maritime legend forever. The sea was calm, the skies clear, yet the scene awaiting the rescuers was anything but ordinary. As the Silver Star approached the ghostly silhouette of the Ourang Medan, something felt immediately off. The freighter floated eerily still, with no signs of life on deck, no crew rushing to wave for help, no captain to signal instructions. It was as though the ship itself was abandoned by the living but haunted by something unseen. Boarding parties climbed onto the vessel, bracing themselves for what they might find, but nothing could prepare them for the sight that greeted them. The decks were littered with the bodies of the crew, frozen in grotesque positions, their faces twisted into horrifying expressions of sheer terror. Some men lay with their arms outstretched, as if trying to fight off an invisible attacker. Others clutched their chests, mouths wide open in silent screams, eyes bulging as though they had seen something unspeakable in their final moments. Even the ship's dog was discovered dead, teeth bared in a snarl, as though it too had faced some dreadful fate. Yet what struck the rescuers most was the eerie stillness. There were no signs of struggle, no wounds, no blood. The crew of the Ourang Medan appeared to have simply dropped dead in a state of absolute fear. For the sailors of the Silver Star, the experience was nothing short of nightmarish. Imagine walking through narrow corridors where every corner revealed another lifeless figure frozen in horror, where silence pressed in from every direction, broken only by the creaking of metal and the distant lapping of waves. The heat of the day seemed unusually oppressive, as though the ship itself carried an unnatural weight, suffocating those who dared to tread its decks. It was not long before whispers of the supernatural began to spread among the rescuers. What had killed the entire crew in such a horrifying way? Why had they died with faces etched in terror? And what unspeakable vision had been the last thing they saw before death claimed them? These questions marked only the beginning of a mystery that remains unanswered to this day. The haunting mystery of the SS Ourang Medan began not with the discovery of the ship itself, but with the eerie messages that echoed across the airwaves on that fateful day in 1947. Somewhere in the Strait of Malacca, a vital passage of water between Sumatra and Malaysia, radio operators aboard several passing vessels picked up the strange signals. At first, it was garbled, just fragments breaking through the static, the kind of interference sailors often brushed aside. But then the words became clearer, and each phrase sent a shiver down the spines of those who heard it. The first clear transmission was chilling enough: all officers including captain are dead. Lying in chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. Imagine sitting at your radio, expecting routine communications, only to suddenly hear such a grim declaration. Operators scrambled to confirm the source, their hearts pounding as they realized the distress call was genuine. Before anyone could respond with aid, the transmission resumed. A final message, horrifying in its brevity, pierced the air: "I die." After that, there was nothing but static, and then silence. The strangeness of the message and the desperation in the unknown voice quickly spread through the ships patrolling the region. Among them was the American vessel Silver Star, which happened to be the closest to the reported coordinates. The captain of the Silver Star wasted no time in making the decision to alter course. Sailors aboard the ship prepared themselves, unsure of what awaited them, but aware that maritime law and simple humanity demanded they answer the call for help. In those moments, the Silver Star became a ship of both duty and dread, carrying men who were about to step into one of the darkest legends of the sea. As the Silver Star sailed closer to the reported location, anticipation mixed with unease. The waters of the Strait of Malacca shimmered under the hot sun, deceptively peaceful, but tension rippled through the crew. Eyewitnesses later claimed the air felt heavier, as if the very atmosphere was warning them of the horrors to come. Finally, on the horizon, a shadow appeared, a ship, drifting silently, with no smoke from its funnels, no movement on its decks, no sign of human activity. The lifeless form of the SS Ourang Medan floated like a tomb on the open sea. From afar, it already looked wrong, too quiet, too still, as if time itself had abandoned it. The captain of the Silver Star gave the order to approach. As the rescuers drew nearer, they noticed the Ourang Medan had no visible damage. There were no signs of fire, no broken masts, no evidence of a storm or attack. Yet, despite appearing intact, the ship radiated something unsettling. Rescuers called out, signaling with horns, flares, and megaphones, but there was no answer, only the groaning of the sea and the eerie silence of the ghost ship. The decision was made: a boarding party would climb aboard to search for survivors, if any remained. Little did they know that what awaited them would not be cries for help, but a spectacle of terror that would shake them to their very core. The boarding party from the Silver Star moved cautiously, their boots clanging against the metal ladders as they climbed onto the silent decks of the SS Ourang Medan. The smell hit them first. A strange, suffocating stench that was neither the usual salt of the sea nor the natural rot of death, but something heavier, chemical, almost burning their lungs as they inhaled. The silence was absolute, save for the occasional groan of metal as the ship rocked gently in the water. For seasoned sailors used to noise, shouting, and the rhythm of a working vessel, this stillness was unnatural, like walking into a graveyard in the middle of the ocean. And then they saw the first body. A sailor lay sprawled on the deck, his eyes wide open, unblinking, staring into nothing. His face was contorted in what could only be described as a mask of terror, jaw dropped as if frozen mid-scream, his arms twisted upward as though trying to shield himself from something unseen. The rescuers froze, a chill running down their spines. But as they moved further in, it became clear this was not an isolated death. One by one, they stumbled across more bodies. Crew members scattered across the ship, lying in grotesque positions, each with the same wide-eyed expression of sheer horror. Some clutched their chests, others reached out toward doors or ladders as if in a desperate, final attempt to escape. Even more disturbing was the realization that not one of them bore any visible wounds. There was no blood, no signs of struggle, no weapons, no evidence of an attack. It was as though life itself had been ripped away in a single moment of unimaginable fear. The horror deepened as they entered the bridge. There, the captain's body slumped lifelessly, his face twisted just like the rest of his crew. The officers lay scattered across the chart-room floor, frozen in positions that suggested chaos had overtaken them suddenly and without warning. The radio operator, the man whose voice had carried that final chilling message across the sea, was found dead too, his hand still resting on the telegraph key. His eyes stared blankly, his mouth slightly open, and it was easy to imagine his last words, "I die," escaping his lips before death claimed him. Even the ship's dog, usually a loyal and calming presence on any voyage, had not been spared. Its body was discovered near the deck, teeth bared in a snarl, lips curled back, eyes glassy and lifeless. The animal looked as though it had been struck by a wave of terror just like the man, as if whatever force had swept through the ship had not distinguished between human and beast. The rescuers, hardened sailors though they were, could not help but whisper among themselves, the hairs on their necks prickling as they walked deeper into the vessel. Some spoke of spirits, others of curses. The atmosphere was heavy, almost oppressive, as if the ship itself resented their presence. Every corridor revealed another lifeless figure, another face frozen in that same horrific rictus. It was not the scene of a battle, nor an accident, but something entirely different, something unnatural. And though they did not know it yet, the terror of what had happened on the Ourang Medan was only the beginning of the mystery, one that would soon grow darker with every attempt to uncover the truth. The grotesque scene aboard the SS Ourang Medan left the rescuers with more questions than answers, and in the decades since, countless theories have tried to explain what could have killed an entire crew so suddenly, leaving their faces twisted in terror. The most straightforward explanation, and the one many historians first consider, is poisonous gas. Some researchers believe the ship might have been carrying illegal or hazardous cargo, such as potassium cyanide, nitroglycerin, or even a mix of toxic chemicals that leaked into the ship's compartments. If a sudden release of gas had spread through the ship, it could have suffocated the crew almost instantly, leaving them frozen in panic as their bodies convulsed. This theory is supported by the strange smell reported by the Silver Star's boarding party, though critics argue that poison alone could not explain the bizarre expressions carved into the faces of the dead. Another theory reaches beyond science and into the supernatural. Sailors are notoriously superstitious, and many who retold the Ourang Medan story believe the ship was cursed, haunted, or attacked by forces not of this world. Some claim the crew might have encountered spirits of the sea, perhaps ancient entities angered by something carried aboard the vessel. The horror etched on the sailors' faces, they argue, was the result of seeing something no human was meant to witness. To believers in the paranormal, the Ourang Medan was not just a ghost ship, it was the victim of a haunting so powerful it annihilated everyone aboard. Skeptics, however, argue that the entire story may be nothing more than a legend of the sea, a tale exaggerated and twisted over time by sailors hungry for drama and mystery. They point out that there is no definitive documentation proving the ship existed at all, and that the story only appears in scattered reports from the late 1940s and early 1950s, often with conflicting details. Was the ship Dutch, German, or Indonesian? Was the year 1940, 1947, or 1948? The lack of consistency has led many to dismiss the Ourang Medan as folklore, an eerie ghost story designed to terrify seafarers. And yet, the details are difficult to ignore. The SOS message, the Silver Star's involvement, the gruesome discovery, and the unexplained fire that consumed the vessel before any proper investigation could be made, these are not the hallmarks of simple myth. Whether poisoned by gas, cursed by forces unknown, or erased by governments seeking silence, the Ourang Medan's fate remains one of the most chilling maritime mysteries ever told. The tragedy of the SS Ourang Medan, whether fact or legend, has lived on for decades as one of the sea's darkest enigmas, a tale that continues to terrify and fascinate in equal measure. What makes this story endure is not just the horrific image of an entire crew frozen in death, but the profound lack of closure, the gnawing truth that no one knows, even now, what truly happened aboard the doomed vessel. For the sailors of the Silver Star who first boarded her, the memory must have been unforgettable, dozens of men scattered across their ship, eyes wide in terror, mouths agape in screams that would never be heard. And then, as if the mystery was not horrifying enough, the Ourang Medan caught fire shortly after the Silver Star's boarding party left, exploding into flames so intense that rescuers barely had time to retreat before the ship sank into the depths of the ocean, taking with it every piece of evidence that could have explained the tragedy. All that remained were rumors, whispers, and the memory of twisted, lifeless faces. Over time, the Ourang Medan became more than just a story, it became a maritime legend, one that sailors shared over drinks in dark taverns, one that storytellers passed down as a warning about the sea's unforgiving nature. To this day, it raises chilling questions: was it a natural disaster, a chemical accident, or something beyond human understanding? For historians and researchers, the lack of official records is both the most frustrating and the most intriguing element of the case. How could an entire ship, a full crew, and such a dramatic incident vanish almost entirely from maritime archives? Was the Ourang Medan scrubbed from history to hide the truth, or was it never real to begin with? Each possibility is unsettling in its own way. What lingers most powerfully, however, is the psychological weight of the story. Imagine being alone at sea, thousands of miles from land, and hearing that final distress call over the radio, "I die." Those words, simple and raw, capture a human moment of fear that transcends myth and history. Whether they were spoken by a real sailor or invented in retellings, they touch something primal in us, the terror of facing death without understanding its cause. The sea has always been a place of mystery, swallowing ships and souls alike, but the Ourang Medan is unique in that it leaves behind not just loss, but terror itself, preserved in the frozen faces of its crew. Even now, storytellers, researchers, and filmmakers revisit the tale, each time reigniting debates about what happened in those final moments aboard the ghost ship. Some say the truth lies buried deep beneath the ocean floor, in the wreck of a ship no one has ever found. Others believe the truth was never meant to be known. That the Ourang Medan was cursed, a vessel that carried secrets too dark for the living world. Regardless of the explanation, the story has achieved something rare. It has haunted generations, refusing to die just as surely as its crew died in terror. And perhaps that is the true legacy of the SS Ourang Medan, that it stands as a chilling reminder of how small we are against the vast unknown, and how some mysteries of the sea are never meant to be solved.